Hey, what's up? It's been a while since I posted a video on YouTube. They also weren't very good. That was me during high school when I was young, dumb, and vaguely homosexual. After the traumas and sleepless nights of college, I have to say I've matured. I've become depressed, anxious, and vaguely homosexual. Thank you to Emmy Virali for my new skin. It fits perfectly, and I will be using it for the foreseeable future. I've linked her stuff down below in the description. Check it out. Cosmic horror is one of my favorite topics, and this froggy looking white guy is regarded as one of the fathers of that genre. So, for your viewing pleasure, I will go through the task of reading through all of these books and giving you a spoiler free description, do some basic literary analysis so that I can actually do some critical thinking in my life, and rank them on this arbitrary yet effective tool for communicating my preferences. This is a tier list video. Please clap.
No.
I'm mostly making this video for me, to prove to myself that I can finish a project that I can put my mind to, and this is a lot of work. I'd appreciate any engagement that you guys provide down below in terms of likes, comments, and subscribes, and I also know that y'all do not have the attention span to sit through a 12-hour long video, so I've broken it up into 6 parts, describing about 10 books each. This is still more than an hour long. Jesus Christ. Feel free to agree or disagree about where I put your favorite book in the comments. I might respond to them, I might not. This is a huge project, and I do have a lot of reading content to still get through, but I'll try my best to respond to insightful or constructive comments. I'll also have this handy little thing. This is the Rayatron System Metric Counter, or the Racism Counter for short. It works similar to a Geiger counter in that this is going to start clicking and beeping if I get too close to any problematic subject within any of these books. The higher the scale, the more distracting the bigotry is. This is going to hopefully help us stay clear of demonetization, especially with Mr. Lovecraft's. I'll be doing this in chronological order, and I'll have chapters set up so that you can skip to your favorite book whenever you like. Without further ado, let's start with...
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Lovecraft's first published work as an adult, The Tomb. Here's the scoop. Our narrator is Jervis Dudley, a self-confessed patient of a mental asylum who begins to write down his journey from the great outdoors to the loony bin. He was born to a wealthy family and spent most of his time reading old-ass books and romping around some forest behind his house. This guy also sees nature spirits just flying around. Keep that in mind when he says that he's supposed to be a reliable narrator. One lovely day, Jervis finds the tomb of the Hydes, an old family whose bloodline had died out far before our boy Jervis was born. There used to be an estate where this tomb was, but it was struck down in a storm that wasn't all too natural, as the old folks remember it. And Jervis noticed that the tomb itself was padlocked with an old rusted chain, and it looked like it hadn't been touched in years. So, as a child, he was determined to find his way in. When he became an adult, he scrummaged through his attic, found the key to the tomb, and enters it, and has a series of dreams/hallucinations, and becomes a little bit stranger than he was before. You can read all about how he ends up in the mental hospital on your own. Alright, here's the analysis part. I will preface this by saying that I did not go to college for writing or literary analysis. I went for computer science. If you find that I made a mistake somewhere, and I did my best to research all of these topics to the best of my ability, but mistakes happen, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make amendments to them in whatever video comes out next. Alright, with that out of the way, this whole story can be seen as an allegory to Pandora's box, with the tomb being the literal box being opened to unleash knowledge that curses our narrator with visions of the past. The fact that the tomb itself is in this strange little clearing and also slightly ajar, which invites our narrator in, definitely has that allure of curiosity that eventually kills the cat. It's funny, because if we really want to go into full-on stretch territory, we can say that the reason the Hydes are chosen as a family name was because they were meant to be hiding some sort of terrible secret that led to their demise.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Like I said, not a great literary wizard when it comes to this stuff. Regardless, I really like that we can see a lot of Lovecraft's writing style here shine. The incredible imagery describing all these ancient tombs, his way of depicting these events that are seen as taboo and not quite within the grasp of the five senses. Even the recurring motifs of dreams and heritage, yeah, that happens a lot. Brace yourself for all that. That happens like almost every book. And the strangest part is, there's no cosmic horror really present here. It's a story with an uncertain beginning and an even more uncertain end. Overall, I found this to be a pleasant surprise, and I can't wait to read more pleasant reads like this. I'm gonna give this an A tier. Wow. Just wow. We have the mentally unhinged narrator once more, except this one is not in a straitjacket. Nope, this one's waiting to jump out a window. Self-defenestrate, if you will. Oh, and he's also a drug addict. This is a tale of our unknown narrator, who used to be a sailor that was part of a cargo ship, pirated and captured during the Great War by a German warboat. This book was written around 1917, so World War I hadn't ended quite just yet. He managed to escape his German captors and float off on his own, with no land in sight, no navigational skills, and no way of contacting the outside world. The rest of Dagon is him recounting what happened during his lovely boating trip into the mid-Atlantic. Ah, the salty, fresh air, the burning sunlight and accompanying sunburn, and of course, unthinkable horrors beyond our comprehension. Seriously, 3 pages into the story on my e-reader, and my brother describes some random shit stuck in goo as less describable things than fish corpses. Your mind has to work overtime to fill the gaps.
Leave me alone!
Akira!
Or HP all-in-one printer just tells you, in great detail. Like this passage, when he says, and I quote, "Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint." Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer, they were damnably human in general outline, and then he keeps going. For the rest of the page about how they look, Hey, boat guy, didn't you say that you were gonna faint if you tried to remember what they look like? Man, I wonder if this is gonna keep happening in these stories. This story is just quintessential Lovecraft. This is what you expect to read when someone says you should read a Lovecraft novel or a Lovecraft short. It has the unreliable narrator, the relatively normal situation that's been turned abnormal.
I chop you up in a meat grinder.
The inexplicable random stuff thrown at a wall and somehow sticking due to the strange yet charming nature. The sciencey stuff that's not really all that accurate, but doesn't need to be to push the point of the story. It's all there. This is a fantastic read. It's not too long, and I'd recommend this to anyone who needs a break from all the TikToks and the YouTube shorts. Just something to keep your attention span. This is also the first time that Mr. Howie Mandel makes our unthinkable horror fish people. We're also going to see this recurring theme in several of his books, with the most famous example being, of course, Shadows over Innsmouth, and this one. These are the 2 most famous ones. In terms of analysis, the theme of keeping stones unturned and to keep Pandora's box closed is a common theme that Minecraft loves to write about. That once you subject yourself to forbidden knowledge, it comes back to haunt you in aggressive and persistent ways. Whether the wounds be self-inflicted or caused by some unseeable, unknowable entity is up to our interpretation. The exploration of the dredged-up ocean floor, as our narrator described it, is us literally dredging up our past that wants to be left forgotten. Another common theme here references to classical works. Maybe it's just me, but I think Lovecraft takes inspiration both from Greek myths and legends and prolific writers like Poe and Bulwer that he mentioned previously. 500 likes and I'll tier list all of Poe's books next. That's the end of the interpretation section. Feel free to read it on your own, make your own analysis in the comments. I know that Lovecraft's opinions are far different from mine, simply because I'm 99% sure he would have choice words about my race and identity. I can see the conversation already. Yeah, I really enjoyed Dagon. I found it to be a fascinating dive into the haunting nature of our past deeds and the curse that knowledge brings us when we're not supposed to see it. Your first two novels were fantastic. I'm looking forward to more works from you.
Who are you? Why is this bird talking to me? I need to leave. I cannot be associated with this drivel. Where is my cat? What the fuck is that?
Dagon, S tier, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Please read this. It's very good.
Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. I hope you're prepared for an unforgettable luncheon.
You know, I guess I overblew it a little with the racism counter. This thing hasn't really beeped at all for the last 2 books. Oh, back to the story. Man, I hate it when I look at an Aurora Borealis and get transported into a long-forgotten past which haunts me through my nightly routines unless it's cloudy and the North Star is invisible. Yeah, that's the story. I give it an S tier. I fucking hate those lights. In all seriousness, this story has a very dreamlike quality to it. Fitting, since it seems like most of Lovecraft stories revolve around the old and hated trope of it was all a dream, ooh. But this one has a twist at the ending that's actually kind of fun. I love how the story is set up here. An unusual Aurora Borealis transports her narrator to an ancient city where he watches the denizens go about their day. Being curious as to what the city is and who these people are, he keeps poking and prodding at this dream until he finally manages to put himself in the body of the sole watchman of the town, keeping watch for a band of raiders and barbarians. Tragedy ensues, and the North Star haunts him for the rest of eternity, or however long an existence he has. I actually want to talk a little bit about the ending, since it's a very unique way to finish a story like this. If you want the rating, this one's a B tier. If you want to avoid spoilers for Polaris, I recommend you skip to this time. All right, I warned you. So here's the deal. I love the fact that the narrator's insatiable curiosity led him to becoming part of this story. It really feels like our boys inside this brick home really just lost a part of himself and became possessed by the spirit of a watchman who fell asleep on duty and can't wake up from this dreamscape of a nightmare, or reality, whichever one you think it is. This is a story about hubris and over-dedication, of wanting to prove to yourself without really understanding your limits. And of course, because of this, they're punished by the cosmos and whatever gods exist in this cruel, unforgiving world. It's tragic, because we now know that the night watchman failed in his duties by falling asleep, probably forever due to the North Star's curse on him. But he wants to wake up from this nightmare, quote unquote, to save his family and his village. He can't save them because they're already gone. And now our narrator is also gone to a degree as well, since he can't differentiate between the past and the present. I also feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, I forgot about Drew. Ooh, that is quite the description there, Philip. Have you ever met an Inuit person in your life?
One eye open when I'm sleeping.
Oh no. So the interesting thing about this particular one is that we start with a Shakespeare quote. I have an exposition of sleep come upon me. So after doing some quick research, this is from the play of Midsummer Night's Dream, one of Shakespeare's earliest comedy plays. I don't hate this inclusion, considering that the story is described in a hazy, dreamlike aesthetic, which kind of fits the whole theme of Walls. I thought maybe he could have had To Sleep Perchance to Dream from Hamlet instead, but that play thematically and narratively doesn't really fit the story that's being told. Anyway, that's enough about Shakespeare. We're not talking about him right now. We're talking about races. We're talking about Lovecraft. All right, let's start reading. I have frequently wondered if the majority of mankind ever paused to reflect upon the occasional titanic significance of reference. Oh my god, he's talking about titanium from Shin Megami Tensei Persona 310! The story is about an intern at a psych ward that receives an insane man named Joe Slater. He's an Appalachian man, shout out Wendigoon, who P.P. Small describes with great detail that he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, in the worst way possible. I don't recommend looking up this book. It's not the most family-friendly one to introduce to your friend. Ever since Slater was young, he had a habit of sleeping strangely and talking about things out of this world. As Slater grew older, his rants became more frequent and violent until he straight up just pulps the guy. Fucking blenderizes him with his own fists. Lovely visual. So he's there, at the psych ward, and our intern, who remains unnamed, attempts to peek into his dreams with a homemade device that he put on Slater's head, which, of course, lets him peek at something that he's not technically supposed to see. Except, of course, he can communicate with it. Of course, why not? This story... Jesus, man, calm down. I'm trying to analyze this damn... Ow, my God. Getting around the wording, shall we say, I found this story to be strangely bittersweet. Like a memory of something that's never been before. If you would be so kind. Dreams are inherently that. It's a memory of something that isn't real, something we've never experienced. Yet we experience it all the same and remember all the important details like any other memory. The way Lovecraft portrays the cosmic, unknowable, and unimaginable entities in the story makes it seem like we've always known they've been there before, and we have been there before. We just don't remember it. The dialogue between our intern and Joe during Joe's final moments is like two old friends that haven't seen each other in a long time, reminiscing over the past. It's a really touching story, and it reminds us that even if our planetary bodies are insignificant in the grand scheme of the cosmos, there could be other parts of us that play a role far greater than we've ever imagined. Besides the whole superiority thing going on here. I really hope those ducks are not getting caught in the audio. Holy shit, they are so loud. Anyway. I enjoyed the story. Not as fun of a read as Dagon, nor is it as horrific as any other entries, but it's a decent story. I'll give it a solid B. This counter is going to be the reason this video gets demonetized. Or maybe it doesn't because I keep it around. Oh well. Time to move on to...
I'm dizzy and I have serious short-term memory loss.
Man, the geese outside are honking crazy loud. I hope they calm down soon.
Memory. Short, punchy, to the point. But I want to analyze this one a little deeper. There's layers to this, and I feel like we should go over it line by line even. If you want to read it yourself, I'll give you like 10 seconds to pause the video and go read it. Go ahead, it's like not even a page. And it's really interesting, trust me. Alright. Ready? I really like this story, so please, stick around for this. I'm going to read through this line by line. I'm doing this so that I can get my literary analysis fix for the week, and also because I think it's a skill that most people need to get by the time they graduate high school. Alright. In the Valley of Nis, the accursed waning moon shines thinly, tearing a path for its light with feeble horns through the lethal foliage of a great upas tree. Alright, so a couple of fun facts here. Waning moon that shines thinly, we can interpret as a waning crescent moon. New moons are seen as a rebirth, start of a new cycle, start of a new age, stuff like that, where we can say that this is the beginning of something. We can also say that we're near the end of something, as the current phase needs to end in order for the new phase to begin. The moon is tearing a light through the foliage of a great tree. So this moon is not a familiar moon. It's not a friendly moon. This moon is hostile. This current age, as we've said before with the new moon stuff, can be interpreted as hostile. And the great upas tree, or Antiaris toxicaria, is a tree species in the Javanese language known for poisons. Hence, lethal foliage. So not only is this a hostile age, this is also a lethal age, and an age of extinction, perhaps. And within the depths of the valley, where the light reaches not, move forms not meet to be beheld. There are those that are not meant to be within the light, and hide from it to prevent themselves from being seen. Whether that means these beings are dangerous, inconceivable, or some other third thing, we don't really know. They're also from the depths of the valley, which in most cases of literature and film, below is bad, above is good. Rank is the herbage of each slope, where evil vines and creeping plants crawl amidst the stones of ruined palaces, twining tightly about broken columns and strange monoliths, and heaving up marble pavements laid by forgotten hands. The plant life that covers this ancient valley and this ancient city of palaces, columns, monoliths, and paved roads are, as we said earlier, hostile, angry, and they've taken over these old ruins with an almost malevolent nature. This theme of ruined cities and forgotten hands also relates back to our earlier talk of this being the end of an age, the end of an era. Along with that, I can also make a connection here with the poem Ozymandias. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tells its sculptor well those passions red, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." Likened to the sand of the desert which beheld the statue of Ozymandias, the vines grow and take down these monuments to this old civilization forgotten to time. And in trees that grow gigantic in crumbling courtyards leap little apes, while in and out of deep treasure vaults ride poison serpents and scaly things without a name. In these crumbling monuments and hostile areas, we still have life, which is interesting to note. Apes and poisonous serpents and scaly things without a name, which could be a callback to Dagon with their scaly carcasses in the water that should not be described. Also, the fact that there is still life here means that life moved on from the civilization that existed here. Whatever ended the civilization had no effect on nature. Vast are the stones which sleep beneath coverlets of dank moss, and mighty were the walls from which they fell. For all time did their builders erect them, and in sooth they yet serve nobly, for beneath them the grey toad makes his habitation. These crumbling stone walls are massive and overtaken with plant life, much like everything else. In sooth means truthfully, so truthfully speaking, they are still serving their purpose, as it provides a home for a grey toad. So while they were incredible in their original state, housing the denizens of this civilization, these walls have fallen off physically and in stature and serve the lowly toad as its home. It's irony. This is irony. At the very bottom of the valley lies the river That, whose waters are slimy and filled with weeds. From hidden springs it rises, and to subterranean grottos it flows, so that the daemon of the valley knows not why its waters are red, nor whither they are bound. At the bottom of this valley of a crumbling civilization, there is a river as many old civilizations do spring from. The water flows from an unseen spring, another allusion to somewhere new, and it flows away to an underground cave, which could be an allusion to the underworld or death. The name of the river is also interesting. Then, it's close to the word then, which is the word for after something. It could also be a reference to the personification of death in Greek mythology, Thanatos, in which case the river here could be similar to something like the river Styx in Greek mythology, or perhaps it's more similar to a river of memories, like the river Lethe. Lethe? Lethe? Fuck. Rivers and flowing water usually represents the flow of time, and we see that this river is slimy and filled with weeds. This could mean that this time frame or this timeline could be cluttered and filled with terrible and nasty things, and that the past, the future, and present are also all unclear. Again, implying that whatever this civilization was has met an unfortunate end. Also, the red water can represent blood, meaning that whatever ended that civilization left this river of blood as a reminder of its demise. We're also introduced to a character, the Daemon of the Valley. This daemon could also be a classical reference, but we learn his name soon enough anyway, so I'll move on. The genie that haunts the moonbeams spake to the demon of the valley, saying, I am old and forget much. Tell me the deeds and aspects and name of them who built these things of stone. We have another new character, the genie that haunts moonbeams. These are ancient beings that are old and have experienced too much to remember everything. The genie also wants to know where these monuments and crumbling rocks came from originally as well. And the daemon replied, I am memory, and am wise in the lore of the past, but I too am old. These beings were like the waters of the river That, not to be understood. It's funny that memory recalls everything, yet he is too old. An old memory is usually not to be trusted, as it changes over time. Yet it is the only evidence that we have that the past ever occurred. Unless, of course, you have the physical proof right in front of you. Their deeds I recall not, for they were but of the moment. Their aspect I recall dimly, for it was like to that of the little apes in the trees. They were of the moment, meaning they only cared about what the present brought for them. They're similar to the small monkeys living in such a hostile environment. Perhaps they had built these ruins in spite of some other insidious force, similar to the toxins in the trees that have poisoned them from the ground up. Or perhaps they were already poisoned or corrupted because of their environment in the first place. Their name I recall clearly, for it rhymed with that of the river. These beings of yesterday were called man. Most memorizations are easier with mnemonics, and luckily our river rhymes with the beings of yesterday, of man. This story is about the fall of man, the end of mankind, where no one will remember anything about their particular deeds, heroics, the people, etc., etc. When mankind falls, nothing remains besides our monuments to ourselves, and those lose meaning over time, reclaimed by nature and the earth that came before. So the genie flew back to the thin horned moon, and the daemon looked intently at a little ape in a tree that grew in the crumbling courtyard. This also implies that the little ape in the tree could be the last of mankind, or if we read this in a positive light, the start of a new kind of mankind. surviving in the most lethal trees and environments. The daemon looks at the ape and is reminded of the deeds of man. We don't know what they think about man because the daemon doesn't know what mankind was about. This story is one of my favorites. It reads as prose, yet it feels like a poem. It encapsulates the tragedy of mankind and our ambitions and our achievements. It all comes crumbling down and time moves on. And reading through it, picking out some of these details with the name of Ban for the river, the fact that it is a waning crescent moon in a shadowed valley, valleys being the low point, symbolizing the low point of any story. All of these details makes it known that the details are intentional and has meaning. If an artist or a writer puts in the effort to make their art form known, you will see it if you take the time to look closely and really examine what everything could possibly mean. Memory is nostalgia for the times of Ozymandias. I rate this an A. Even if it's short, it's very impactful. I love it.
Without homeless people, I wouldn't have half the joy and laughter I do in this life.
What in the world is going on out there? It's not just ducks, it's like crows and like other birds too. I really don't want to re-record this stuff. Oh. Welcome to Old Bugs. At first glance at the title, you expect this to be an exploration of bugs from times long ago that have some terrifying appearance and unstoppable power. It's not. It's a very well-written tragedy with a predictable yet enjoyable twist. Old Bugs is not only the title of the story, but it is also one of the central characters in the book. The story itself is set in the great wondrous future of 1950. Specifically in a lowbrow yet somehow high-class speakeasy known as Sheehan's Pool Room. Here we're introduced to our, I guess, protagonist, Old Bugs? He's an old drunk that stumbled in one day, asked for drinks, and what is that? Powdered weed? And stuck about doing janitorial work in exchange for drinks. Old Bugs seems to carry a quiet air about him, unless he's in the middle of a booze-fueled rant reciting some old poems and written works. And according to one of the patrons, they could tell that he was a professor of some kind in his past. As you read, some more interesting details about Old Bugs is revealed, such as how he keeps a wrapped picture of a young rich lady in his pockets, and how on occasion he wouldn't look so drunken and weary, and instead looks like he carries himself with a shitload of confidence. And most importantly, every single time a young person enters the bar, he goes up to them and threatens them in crazy mumblings. Of course, with all those establishing details set, I leave you to read the story to enjoy the rest. It has a tragic and terrible ending, and it's got a relatively positive message for young readers about the horrors of alcoholism. I have to say though, I agree with some of the patrons in this novel because holy shit, sometimes Hovercraft loves using some random fucking word that no one's ever heard of. What the fuck does anacreontic mean? Anacreontics are verses used by the Greek. Huh. Dionysus would be proud. So, analytically, I don't even know where to start. There are a few references scattered here and there, all of course from different origins. We have a reference to Belial, a term used in the Hebrew Bible, which is the personification of the devil, Anacreon, a poet with a focus on love and wine, and the quote, Ave Caesar, moraturus te saluto. Hail Emperor / Julius Caesar, those who will die salute you. Anacreon was known for his lyric poems that, in the context of the 1920s, would have been seen as about mostly vices. The Prohibition era hadn't quite started yet, but the amendment was passed around the time that Lovecraft wrote this book. And, hold on. How in the fucking world is this a comedy? Researching the origins of this book led me to a rabbit hole, where I found that Lovecraft wrote this as a mocking parody of his friend Alfred Galpin, suggesting that he wants to try drinking before the Prohibition Amendment was passed. We also found out that this guy doesn't know how to have fun. It's sort of funny too, because most of his narrators are drug addicts or mentally insane, yet he abstains from alcohol. Maybe if he loosened up a little and sipped a little funny juice, he wouldn't be so wound up about all that newfangled technology. Then again, we wouldn't have the absolute insane writings he made about new tech either. You know what? I think this was actually the best timeline. I'll take it. Back to the analysis. Of course, looking at this from a modern point of view without the foundational knowledge, it's very easy to see this as a tale of an old broken man stopping a poor soul from walking the same path that he has before and sacrificing himself for them. Pause. Hold on. I've seen this plot before. But let's take the satirical piece a layer deeper. I've already gone through a line-by-line read of memory. I'm not doing that again. But I do just want to have some fun with it. You know? We're in the Stockyard district of Chicago. That's established within the first paragraph of the book. This place is the meatpacking district, otherwise known as the place where all the health code violations happened. Yay! Very easy connection to make is that this is a dirty, unsanitary district in both state and mind, similar to the conditions of the meatpacking plants. This also holds for the mental state of our man, Old Bugs, and the dealings of Shihans. Young people being brought into this place, both the district and the speakeasy, could be seen as bringing young lambs into the slaughter, or staining those who are pure and untouched by the vices of the world. It also makes sense that our man's name is Old Bugs, as not only is he an old bugger in the British UK inconvenience sense, but also as a sort of metaphor of an old bug that flies around the cesspit / meatpacking plant, bothering those who wish to explore it. His attack of young folks can be seen as like a cloud of bugs, bothering an old animal trying to inspect a carcass, chasing it away. So why do I bring all this up? It's fun to see all the connections that you can create in literature if you just do a tiny bit of research and think about it for a second. Old Bugger can be a close rhyme to Old Beggar as well, as he essentially lives in the speakeasy begging for money to spend on drinks. Literary analysis doesn't have to be scary. You come up with an idea, find some evidence to support it, and at the end of the day, you have a 500-word essay you can turn into your AP Lit teacher. Also, it's fun to see that like a throwaway detail to many has a lot of significance if you dive into it a little deeper. The Stockyard point is made as one sentence, but since it's our setting, it has a lot of meaning. Okay, rant over. I really enjoyed the story. From the setup, to the predictable twist ending, to every little detail mentioned in between. I mean, if Lovecraft kept writing stuff like this, I feel like more schools would encourage reading this type of stuff, because while it does have a lot of big scary words for younger kids, if you're a fan of reading and can get over the writing style of the 1920s, I think this is a fantastic piece to offer to someone who wants to get into reading but can't bring themselves to pick up a long novel. It's got a whole story in there with a whole arc. It's great. And the counter hasn't clicked either. Solid A tier. I considered putting it in S briefly, but I don't want to hand those out too willy-nilly. I might change my mind as I read more of his books, but for now, Bugs, A tier.
Welcome to my mine. We are mining diamonds.
I don't like where the counter is right now. From the majesty of Old Bugs to the transition of Juan Romero. Wow, so brave. Unfortunately, this was not written in Pride Month, and the story is a little bit more about a hole in the ground rather than a transition story. Honestly, I have no idea why they decided to name the story The Transition of Juan Romero, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start talking about it. We're in the 1890s. Specifically, we're in the Norton antivirus, Norton Minecraft realm, Norton Mines. Well, not exactly at the Norton Mines, but we're discussing an incident that happened on the 18th and 19th of October in 1894. Our protagonist is...
Is he supposed to be Indian or India occupying British? What the fuck? Okay. After reading it line by line, it says he was stationed in India, which means he's a part of the British occupying army of India. According to Wikipedia, he was stationed there during the reign of Queen Victoria. But he preferred talking to the white-bearded native teachers rather than his fellow comrades. And he's apparently well-cultured in Eastern lore, whatever that means. I think we're talking about Hindu mythology? Now what the fuck does he mean by calamity? The Norton Mines are located in the Cactus Mountains, which is probably a fictional mountain range somewhere in the American Southwest. The mine is filled with gold veins and a vast cave structure, and the whole thing is located under a lake. Our unnamed narrator is hired for the excavation team, along with a group of Mexicans, one of which is our story namesake, Juan Romero. He stood out from the crowd because he has lighter skin and looks partially Native American. Jesus, man, you could have picked literally any other characteristic. Our narrator thinks he's directly descended from the Aztecs. Cool, you could have just said that instead of mentioning his skin color. I'm going to go ahead and skip over the rest of his description too, as they are not necessary and also kind of racist. Oh man, don't tell him about the 2024 Providence census data. He's not going to be very happy. Our boy Juan was found in a hut in the middle of his village, which was wiped out by some sort of disease that we don't get any context for. Next to the hut, near a huge fucking crack in the ground, his parents' skeletons just sat there, meatless, picked clean by vultures. Yay! Juan got adopted by Mexican cattle thieves and eventually grew up to join this mining expedition. Romero and our protag were kind of drawn to each other. Not in the gay way, or maybe it was. I don't know. Juan really liked the Hindu ring that our protag is wearing, and our protag was lost in Juan's gorgeous eyes. Not really, but kind of. He got curious that Juan was so fascinated by this ring. On that fateful night on the 18th/19th of October 1894, a dynamite charge was set off in the mountains to clear some debris and open the huge chasm that appeared to be bottomless. This unnerves most of the workers and the superintendent, who, unlike most people in this position, decided not to rush the exploration of this chasm and just waited until the next day. The night afterwards is when shit hits the fan, and both our boys Juan and Protag hear some sort of noise, a rhythm, even a heartbeat coming from the mines themselves. This is also the point that I was surprised, as Lovecraft knows how to write in Spanish. Juan rushes into the mines and Protag follows, worried about what he's going to do. And that's it for the no spoiler version. Where to even start with the lit analysis of this? Thanks to my Discord friends for helping me figure out some of the references being made here. Oh god. Huitzilopochtli is a name being repeated by our boy Juan as he runs down into the being chasm. According to Wikipedia, he's the patron god of the Aztecs, with their capital city of Tenochtitlan. I'm gonna fuck this up. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce these words. I'm trying my best. Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan. The capital city of the Aztec Empire. His domains include being the literal sun, along with the ability to control fire with his fire serpents that he uses as a weapon. He's also a god that has a very close association with human sacrifices, with their still beating hearts raised to the sky and part of their ritual. The rhythmic beating, while it could be representing war drums or some kind of other type of ritual drumming, can also be seen as a symbol of the beating heart that was frequently presented to the sun during human sacrifices. Their descent into the mines could be like a descent into hell if you're ignoring the fact that everything happening is Aztec in origin, or it could be like the human sacrifices being kicked down to the bottom steps of a pyramid after their hearts are presented to the gods, to be dismembered, or cremated, depending on what you feel. Man, actual research was conducted for this analysis. Crazy. Even the setting itself is a reference to the ancient Aztec capital. The city was placed on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. The mines are beneath a lake called Jewel Lake. The use of a gold mine could be seen as simple as a reference to the city of El Dorado, the city of gold, most notably searched for in Latin America, or even go as deep as being a colorful reminder of the sun god sleeping deep under the earth. Yellow gold shines brightly when near a flame or light, especially in a dark cave. Even the mountain range, Cactus Mountain, is a huge reference to the fact that a popular translation of Tenochtitlan is prickly pear growing amongst rocks. Is there a lesson in all this? Don't waste a beautiful day looking up random facts about the Aztec Empire and touch some grass. But what do I know, man? Apparently, many strange things were taught to me in India. And speaking of India, if you think I forgot about the whole Hindu ring Eastern lore arc, I didn't. I have no idea what this could be. If you have a better idea of why that ring has such a prominent place in the story, you let me know in the comments. Thanks. I think I'm going to set poor Juan at C tier. This short seemed more scatterbrained and all over the place in terms of an actual story enjoyability than his other works, but I still appreciate the visuals and the amount of research I had to do to understand all the references. Big ol' C.
It don't go down.
Robert, it goes down.
No, it don't.
It do go down.
Oh!
I think the counter needs a rest. Thankfully, this story gives us a break from the constant beeping. This story is about Basil Elton, a generational lighthouse keeper dreaming of life. His hobbies include ship watching, listening to old sailors talk about places away from the lighthouse, and reading about places away from the lighthouse. Guy needs a new hobby. So, occasionally, during the full moon, the white ship would come from the south and just kind of coast over the horizon. Apparently, he could see this ship clearly enough to see the captain waving at him to come aboard, which Basil does one night, walking on moonbeams. Take that, Jesus! Get one up by a fucking vegetable! From here, the story becomes a description of lands far and wide, safe and dangerous, etc., etc. It feels like an exercise in imagery, giving us all these descriptors that depict these faraway lands that have their own story and their own lore. We have the land of Zar, where dreams and thoughts that are forgotten exist, the city of Solarion, the land of Zura, and finally the land of Sonanil. All of these culminate into this fantastic dreamscape, and after a while, our narrator Basil gets a hint of a land further beyond, only known as Cathuria. Oh, I don't like the way I pronounce that. Cathuria. And after a while, our narrator Basil gets a hint of a land further beyond, only known as Cathuria, and begs his captain to set sail. And I'll leave the story there for now. This is a classic theme that most people are aware of. Beware the lengths that man's hubris will take you on your journeys. It's in a lot of Greek epics, it's in a lot of modern stories, it's everywhere. Let's move on from the obvious and break some smaller stuff down. The names of the places that our narrator passes by don't appear to have any specific meaning, as I'm pretty sure those words are just made up by Lovecraft for his own lovely mythos. So let's talk about the ship itself instead. The white ship itself could be a metaphor for the consciousness sailing through a dream, or maybe it's an allegory for the Odyssey. The ending can go both ways, as a daydream collapsing in on itself as our narrator snaps back to reality, or the ending being a parallel to the fate of the crew within the Greek epic. Knowing Lovecraft's attachment to these poems and the theme of dreams, it's probably both. Personally, I enjoy the dream aesthetic, and it does a great job at world building. If you were building a D&D campaign, I would want this many descriptors to depict what kind of world I'm spending my time in. This story is going to get a B tier, for both. MF Doom starts a bit before the beginning of Sarnath, talking about a previously existing city of Ib, populated with, you guessed it, fish people. These fish people worshipped a stone idol shaped like a lizard, around which they danced during any gibbous moon. They were around since ancient times, and because people are people, humans settled near these fish people, realized they don't like the fish people and their weird-ass traditions, and killed all of these fish people. Already, I'm seeing historical parallels. They took the fish idol piece back as a world trophy, and it did some spooky magic shit and killed the high priest, who, with his final actions, wrote down the word doom on the altar. Fast forward several years. Sarnath is extremely wealthy due to the vast supply of precious metals in the ground, and it's essentially a trade empire. Everyone's super rich. Roads are paved with onyx, not gold, and huge-ass castles are everywhere. They even have a climate-controlled garden that simulates spring on every day of the year. They're not technologically advanced, they just have a lot of money to spare. Each year, on the anniversary of the raising of Ib, Sarnath throws a massive festival. Of course, this time they go absolutely hard on everything. 1000th year anniversary. You have to go all out. Even the priests are joining in, when they're usually a bit nervous about the whole thing due to, you know, high priest being dead thing. Chaos ensues. If you want to know a funny little word, it's called hubris. Merriam-Webster defines it as exaggerated pride or self-confidence. Can you tell where the analysis is going? The story's main theme is another punch in the gut about how humanity's pride in their own accomplishments and conquests always leads to some horrendous downfall. In this case, it's by a tribe of monstrous people that have been occupying this land for many years before the original settler. Wait, I think I see where this is going. It's very easy to interpret this story as a story about colonialism and the fact that the land belongs to another persons that have been driven or wiped out by those who have just stumbled upon it. But we know there's a slight twist to it that makes it a more racially charged piece. Since this is before Lovecraft's opinions on First Nation people changed in the 1930s, the fact that the portrayed indigenous population are not only described as unpleasant to look at, but are also worshipping a lake deity in a disturbing ritual makes it seem like he believes that the ones who came before are not only less than human, but dangerously so. I understand that this story is about a mythical place, and that the people described aren't real. But the parallels exist, and the whole point of analyses is to understand our author's intent of the story. The destruction of Sarnath is a piece about the hubris of man getting what they deserve, but the destruction of Ib is about colonialism and the destruction of ancient cultures seen as worshipping some ancient deity that goes against everything they know, and therefore must be villainized. I think that the story itself has a bunch of fun elements to it, and the fact that this is a tale of hubris makes me want to put this higher. But at the same time, I didn't feel a special satisfaction after reading it, nor was it anything that I would write down as particularly unique, so a nice and steady B tier.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
Woo, thunder. That is loud ass thunder. Holy shit. I really hope that's not being picked up by the microphone. Alright, let's end this video on a good one. The Statement of Randolph Carter! This story is written as the verbal recounting of one Randolph Carter, as he explains what happened to his colleague Harvey Warren. Randolph talks of the entire situation in a very shaky tone, and we definitely see whatever happened to both of them has completely rattled our poor boy. Our story is set in Florida, specifically in Big Cypress Swamp. Warren had a habit of studying strange things, and his studies led him to a book written in a language that Carter has never seen before. Probably Sanskrit or Hindi, considering that it came from India, but I don't know, man, maybe he's just playing dumb. This book leads Warren into trying to find a reason for why some corpses don't decay after hundreds and thousands of years. No, the big monster is not oxidation or bacteria. They enter the swamp in the middle of the night, way after midnight, and discover an ancient cemetery. This cemetery was covered in vegetation and apparently had a funky smell to it similar to rotting stone. If anyone knows what that smells like, please leave a comment. There's clouds of mysterious vapors coming out from all the tombs like it's a fucking Halloween decoration, and they keep looking for a specific grave or mausoleum. When they find it, they dig it up and pry the tomb open to reveal a set of stairs leading into darkness. Carter is told to stay behind, but keeps a hold of a wire that is connected to a phone. A portable phone. So Warren goes in with a loop of copper wire, a light, and a bunch of other tech and marches into the darkness. This fate will be up to you to discover. This statement. Oh boy, let's start with the fact that they're in Big Cypress Swamp. We're getting Greek again. Cyprasios, one of Apollo's boy kissers, was turned into a cypress tree after accidentally killing his beloved stag. This is one of the reasons that cypresses are associated with mourning, death, sadness. And it's not a coincidence that Big Cypress Swamp is being mentioned here, and it's also why the path into the swamp eventually leads to a cemetery, a place of mourning, death, and sadness. Along with this, swamps are usually associated with being untamed, wild, even somewhat evil or malevolent by the richer white aristocracy of the South, symbolism which Lovecraft clearly agrees with by setting our ancient graveyard here. Also, Ariadne, the spool of wire leading into a labyrinth? Come on, man. We also know that our boy Warren has picked up a book that allows those to understand why decay and rot comes to some but not others. Fact of the matter is, Lovecraft loves writing about knowledge that humans should not have, whether it be about gods that are too old for us to even consider and think about, or why certain unnatural things are the way they are. Lovecraft is going to write about them and make you understand that we're not supposed to know. I honestly love this story. While you might be annoyed by the repetition of Carter saying that he's inured by the sheer terrible presence, I honestly think it portrays the ramblings of a traumatized scholar very well. Along with all the analysis stuff above, I also love how similar this is to something akin to a mummy story, but without ever seeing our monster in the flesh. Randolph, mother-loving Carter is getting an S tier. Top of S tier. In front of Dagon. Yeah, I said it. I like this story better than Dagon. That's fucking right. Woo! So, that's it for video 1. This is going to be part 1 of a 6-part series, and part 2 will be on its way sometime soon. If you like the video, do all the engagement stuff, like, subscribe, yell at me for being bad at lit analysis in the comments, recommend new authors to read, etc., etc. Again, thank you to my friend Emmy Virali for making these crow avatars. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one.
They have already sealed their fate. Their hubris will be purged by force. But, just as a phoenix rises from its ashes, so shall the deceitful find new form.